Hello and welcome to Talking Live. I'm Dr. Robi Ludwig here in StarShop Studio in Times Square on a very, very hot summer day. But today we are talking about weight gain, midlife, and what we can do about it, because what happens in midlife is a little bit different than gaining weight at other points in time during our lives. And we have Dr. Siobhan Kealy, who is the medical director of New York Health and Wellness and the co-creator of Balance 3H Plus. She's going to walk us through hormones and why they can influence women during midlife. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. So good to be here. Thank you.
I feel like I have to hold myself back because I want to ask you personal questions just for me.
Okay.
Listen, I wrote the book, Your Best Age Is Now.
Yes.
And I address kind of all different kinds of issues. And really, my operating theory was, in part, we had these negative ideas about midlife that certainly can influence how people experience themselves. But I have to say, I have noticed changes during midlife. And I told you I was going to tell you this story, and this is an honest to God story. You know how some people talk about memories of college, dating, their first job? I talk about memories of eating. Okay, so here's my eating story. When I got my first job in the city, I used to have big lunches, and they weren't healthy necessarily. They were filled with carbs. In fact, I ate a lot of carbs back in the day, and I could get away with it. And I was so full for the rest of the day that I couldn't even have dinner if I had a big lunch. Let's fast forward now to now. If I have a big lunch, it won't matter because I'll be hungry for dinner and I'll be hungry late at night. So you talk a little bit about hormones and the role they play in terms of women, midlife. Paint a picture for us.
Well, the average age of menopause is 51, 52 in the United States. And in our 30s, actually, is when the hormonal shift starts to happen. So you can see it as early as, your early 30s, mid 30s. You start to see a drop in the commonly known hormones, such as progesterone, estrogen. So these are just two of the main players in the hormone balance game that we're looking at. So by the time menopause occurs, a lot of women have been suffering from this hormonal roller coaster of estrogen and progesterone declining and up and downs for about 15 years. And it can be quite a struggle. Lots of symptoms can appear.
When does perimenopause start? So is what you're describing perimenopause?
The moment the symptoms begin is considered perimenopause. Things start to get irregular. Periods start to get irregular. Sometimes women present with mood disorders, insomnia. Yes. There's the classic hot flashes. These are all the hormones starting to shift.
So you can get hot flashes before you're actually in menopause.
Yes. So menopause technically is 12 months period free or menstruation free. That means you are 12 months, you haven't ovulated, you haven't had your menstrual cycle. So that technically is called, you are now postmenopausal. So it can be kind of confusing, the term. So perimenopausal means you're around that area. So the symptoms are happening.
And menopause is during.
Menopause is, it's considered the cease. So pause of menses. Yeah, so
and
menopause.
Then a year after you're postmenopause.
Basically, you are postmenopausal.
But the weight gain and the weight shift can happen anytime from your 30s on.
It can, because we don't have those hormones of being a 25-year-old anymore. It starts to change. Fortunately, some women can sail through it. Unfortunately, a lot of women don't.
Sail through menopause.
The perimenopausal years. Yes.
And so a lot of that is genetic, right?
It can be. But just because your genes predispose you to something doesn't mean that you have to present with that. There's a theory that it's really your environment and what you bathe your genes in is how you present. So
that's epigenetics.
That's
right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
there you go. Epigenetics. That's exactly that.
Because there was a lot of, I was talking to a nutritionist for this book, and she said, Robi, yes, your metabolism can slow down, but if you eat right and if you work out, you can really battle against that. And I just have my own anecdotal theory because I live in the city and I see women walk around all the time. And I really do think that helps. If you live in a walking city and you're walking around a lot, I think you're going to be a bit more fit than if you're in a car and more sedentary.
Yes, that's true. Adding in daily exercise is key. So we're talking like at the Balance 3H Plus Center where I work, we look at your whole hormonal balance. So not just estrogen, progesterone. We look at the other hormones such as.
So how is that done? Is that a blood test?
Okay. Very simple, but very comprehensive. We can look at your cortisol level. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So let's say, nowadays, we're all here. Sure, you come to the center.
No, I want you to take my blood level because I'm dying to know what's going on. My husband's a physician and I was joking around.
Okay.
I'm a psychiatrist. I was joking around. I was like, my hormones are fluctuating. I blame everything on hormones. Everything. Mood, hunger, everything. He goes, Mommy, your hormones are not fluctuating. They're decreasing. I was like, well, that's not very nice to say, but it is accurate.
Well, it's a natural thing. We can't say menopause is like this death for women because it is a natural phase, but we don't have to suffer through it. Yeah. So if you have underlying issues like inflammation, a high sugar diet, you're not exercising, you're going to have these other hormones, insulin, cortisol, that are so out of whack that they're also going to influence that drop in estrogen and progesterone that we all know and make it so much worse.
Now, men don't get it the same way, do
they? No, they don't. They don't. The average age of menopause is 51, and I think in the early 1900s, the average age of death for a woman was around that time too. So it's actually quite.
They didn't have to deal with it.
They did no. So now we're living to 80, 90, and we have 30, 40 years, sometimes 50 of postmenopausal years, and we want to live like the most vital times.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is, just because it's the end of our reproductive years doesn't mean it's the end. We have a lot more time to focus on us now, women in general.
So one of the things that also comes up a lot, women during midlife and gaining weight, it happens in different areas.
Yes.
So it happens around the stomach area where women describe getting thicker.
Right.
So why does it seem to gather in those areas?
Well, good question. There's a few reasons. So estrogen is actually the hormone that tells us to deposit fat in a way women are classically known to. So hips, thighs. So once that depletes, we actually have more of a hormonal picture like a man, and estrogen being lower will trigger us to deposit fat in the midsection. But not only that, the hormone I was telling you about, cortisol. So stress will cause a kind of a cortisol level that's chronically high if you don't know how to balance it with stress reduction. And cortisol is a fascinating hormone because it's beneficial in the right amounts, but once you're going into cortisol overdrive, it tells your body to store fat, particularly in the midsection, because that's the easiest place for it to be mobilized for energy if we were starving, which no one is.
I have to say, I have to tell our audience, because I loved this description on the New York Health and Wellness blog, which you're on. And I want to recommend that people just go on to that site on Facebook and click on blog, because there are great articles on there.
Yeah, there are.
And one of the articles described that our body, it's almost like a bank. And so it gets worried that we're not going to have enough fat. I think my body gets worried a lot. And so it really gathers fat in those areas because it gets worried that it's not going to have enough. And that's the same thing that can happen if we do the starvation diet.
Exactly.
Where our body doesn't want us to starve. So it's kind of like it makes it hard to lose the weight.
Exactly. So these other hormones, leptin and ghrelin, you may have read about it, the gremlin hormone. That is the hormone that makes us hungry. Your stomach sends messages to your brain that you're hungry. And leptin is a hormone that says, I'm satisfied. When you have a lot of fat cells, it's released into the bloodstream and sends a message to your brain to stop eating. So these two hormones need to be in balance, and yo-yo dieting makes it go completely haywire. So once again, that hormonal balance is completely disrupted. Your body doesn't know, it's holding on to fat. Leptin is being released saying stop eating, but it's almost become resistant to it. Yeah. It's not listening. Your brain isn't listening anymore to the signals.
And that's all from hormone imbalance.
That is hormonal. I mean, it's a hormone. It's an imbalance. And these things, they want to come back. They want to come back into balance because that's what our body wants us to do. So, but
maybe that's what your body wants it to do. I think mine has other ideas. I don't know. Well, my body seems to be a comedian. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, we all go through that stage, of course. I've had plenty of years, I mean, one of the reasons why I got into this was because my body in my mid-30s was like, stop, like what's going on? My cortisol level was probably really high. I never checked it, but I was always in chronic stress.
Yeah.
3 young kids.
But you went to medical school. Mm-hmm. I know that you're a board certified physician. I know medical school is very stressful.
It is.
So, but stress at different points of our lives doesn't seem to present itself in the same way.
I think, I mean, as we get older, we stop living in the moment like a child does.
Yeah.
A child doesn't really worry about what happened yesterday or what's going to happen 2 weeks from now, but we constantly do. Mm-hmm. Psychological stress, as you know, as a psychiatrist, it's like our body interprets it the same as a physical stress, the same as running from a tiger, psychological stress, something that's not even happening right now. Something, there's no one knocking at the door trying to take your house if you're in financial stress, like. Right. Our worries are making us chronically stressed out.
And I think, too, just in terms of the sandwich generation, you have kids, I have kids. So our kids need us. Yes. And then sometimes our parents need us in a different kind of way.
That's right.
And yet we're still trying to balance our own goals because really once you're in your 40s and 50s, you're still kind of really in the thick of your career and still have career goals and dreams. So that's a lot going on for one person.
Right. Especially for women. Yeah. We're this modern day superwoman.
Right. So true.
It's so hard to be that, to be the mom, I mean, we want to be home with our kids, but we have to work. It's very stressful. And, society puts a lot of pressure on us.
It's true to be everything.
Perfect. Perfect mom.
Yeah. At the perfect weight.
At the perfect
way. And not only that, I remember I was we were on a family vacation in Puerto Rico, and I was looking around, and I was like, wow, it's really interesting because in the Latin culture, you could be more round, and it was celebrated and beautiful. And yet in American culture, I think, we're all really asked to simulate what an 18-year-old looks like.
That's true.
Right? So there's that pressure as well. What do you find the women at your center complain about the most or want to work on the most?
Well, that's a great question, because weight, and as you said, in other cultures, it's not the same.
Right?
What is the purpose of worrying about weight all the time?
I'm gonna move. Where do they like round people? I'll be there.
So, I mean, the weight is, you're hilarious. The weight is like the outer picture of maybe what's going on inside the patient's body. Because a lot of times what's really happening and what's really driving people to the center is their fatigue, their insomnia, their mood disorders. 1 in 4 women over 40 are on an antidepressant. And sometimes it's not a deficiency in an antidepressant medication. It's an underlying, sometimes hormonal imbalance.
So that impacts the dopamine and serotonin you
were
saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, but we're not looking in our modern day medicine, and I'm guilty of it too. As a primary care doctor, we prescribe a lot of pharmaceuticals, we treat a lot of symptoms, and we're not looking upstream at what might be the underlying cause.
Do you think that's changing a little bit? And I know you mentioned a little bit about just kind of gut health as well. Yes. And what's so interesting in psychiatry, they're also looking at gut health and how that influences depression. And there's this now new thinking that how healthy your gut is influences your mood. I don't really know about that component, but you're saying that there's inflammation of the gut that also can impact our weight and the diet and just how we're presenting.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Have you heard of leaky gut syndrome?
I have.
Yes. So that's what they're talking about, this leaky gut. It's basically inflammation, and it leads to many different types of changes in the body, such as food intolerances, which then, it's a hamster wheel kind of roller coaster effect of inflammation throughout the body. The leaky gut is very, very much related to the hormonal imbalances. Again, in functional medicine, which is looking at upstream causes of diseases, we usually do like to start with the gut because that is your front line of defense. That is usually where most of the issues are taking place. Starting with, what are you putting in your gut? Are you toxifying it with pesticides and non-organic foods
and things that maybe we're not even aware of because they're already in our foods, maybe.
That's the big problem, and that's why going into menopause, going into the perimenopausal years, I should say, we are in such a toxic world with hormone disruptors in our food. So this crazy up and down of our estrogen, progesterone is so much more exacerbated because of what we're surrounding ourselves with. So we try to do that, like detoxification is key for this weight loss, to get that system moving again, to get things back into balance, to get all the mechanisms working.
And
it's very important.
I want to ask you specifically about the Balance 3H Plus, because you take somebody's bloods, you evaluate their hormone level, and then is the diet made specifically for each individual? How does it work exactly?
Well, it's an 8-week program.
Okay.
We do start with a very comprehensive blood panel, and we look at the hormones I mentioned, plus a plethora of other lab tests. And from that point on, it's not a cookie cutter program. It's not one size fits all, because we look at some women might have a cortisol that's very high, someone might have it very depleted. So the program is actually, there are a few standard things that we do, such as a detoxification period, which is a 2-week period. But depending on what your blood panel will show, we may add certain supportive supplements, things that might support your progesterone, some that might support your cortisol if you have something called adrenal fatigue, for example. So after this detoxification, where you're trying to get all that inflammation out of your system, you go on another 6-week, we call it our lean body 6-week program. And throughout all of this, you're meeting with a nutritionist, you're looking at the foods you're eating. It's very comprehensive, and it's the women that have tried it have found great results so far, and it's very exciting.
Also success in terms of maintaining weight off, right? So the theory is, once you can get the hormones in balance, then you can maintain the weight loss easier.
Exactly.
Otherwise,
and learning how to, what is, there's education involved.
Do you eliminate sugars? I mean, I know that there's a theory, eliminate sugars, eliminate carbs as you get older.
In the beginning. I mean, we all have to have a cheat day once in a while. But I think retraining your brain, learning what's good for you, what's not. A lot of people don't even know a lot of these things. Very simple things that you might know about sugar, even diet sodas. I mean, those things, they're no good for you. Right. They're wreaking havoc on your system. They're causing inflammation. Your body doesn't know what to do with these chemicals that I can't even pronounce.
Yeah.
Right? That's not real food.
Right.
So it's saying, get out. What are you doing? And that's when the imbalances occur. Everything shuts down. Your body wants to hold on to the weight because it's stressed.
It sounds like, just to summarize it from a non-medical perspective, is that our body gets confused.
That's exactly.
And tries to save itself, but in doing so, it's kind of gone haywire,
right?
And we can't look our best.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Confusion.
Yeah, confusion.
Putting things it doesn't understand into your system will, wreak havoc. And actually, going back to the leaky gut, that is one of the reasons, there's a link between leaky gut and autoimmune disease, because things can pass into the body that really should only be going back out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And your body just doesn't know what to do with it.
Well, we have a quick 5, which is these are questions from our audience for you, different hormone questions. But I guess that's why my body is confused and very hungry at night, like at 3 in the morning, like I'm in Paris or something. I will wake up and be starving.
Wow.
But I don't know. I guess my body's confused.
That's interesting.
And
That
it
could
has
be a
jet
cortisol
lag?
thing. That could be a cortisol thing
Yeah.
because it has a variation. Morning
Okay.
should be high, should be nice and
Right.
low in the evening.
But not morning 3 in the morning.
No,
When you're sleeping,
no.
right?
That should be low. You should not be
Right.
triggering your appetite at that.
Yeah.
So come on down.
I'm going to come
We're
down.
check it
I'm
out.
very excited to see
Yeah.
what the heck is wrong
It'll be
with my
fun.
blood.
Well, it's not fun. I mean, not fun to see what's wrong with you,
No,
but
but
you know what I mean.
Might as well know.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in the
Exactly.
know, and I'll share it with everyone.
Yeah.
Not that anyone really cares, but anyway.
We care.
Here
We
are
care.
the quick 5 questions
Okay.
that we ask, okay? So what are the main tips for success for losing weight during midlife? We kind of addressed this,
tips.
but...
Okay, let's summarize. Well, nutrition.
Okay.
It's not about how many calories you're eating because 1,500 calories of fast food and diet soda is very different from 1,500 calories of fresh vegetables.
And that's something we did not always know,
And
right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right? It used to be a calories a calorie.
Oh, tell me about it. I used to get a dry bagel and have jam on it when I remember in my early 20s. I was like, this is fat free. I was, because that's what we thought. Fat free was the way to go back then. Snack
I remember
wells,
losing weight.
fat free everything.
Just to talk about my food memories, I talk about this a lot too. I used to walk to work. Moving from Philly, I would drive, and I'd have this big, wonderful cinnamon, sugary Danish. It was the size of my head. It was so good.
Cinnabon.
And I would walk to work, and I still lost weight.
Oh, wow.
I was in my 20s.
Oh,
I like to reminisce.
Yeah.
Okay, I reminisce about food things.
Yeah.
That's a little odd. Okay, what is the best diet for someone who's in perimenopause?
Well, there's no, as I said, it's not, it shouldn't be called a diet. It's like a lifestyle overhaul, really.
Okay.
So the best nutrition plan would be, you want to decrease inflammation. What causes inflammation? Sugar, alcohol, caffeine.
Okay.
Things that you can't pronounce on the label.
Yeah.
Things the best food plan is a whole food diet.
So it's close to the ground, like anything that's fruit and
very hunter and gathery.
We hear mixed, about caffeine. We hear sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. You're saying too much is not great.
Well, it puts you on that cycle, that roller coaster of I need my caffeine in the morning to get up, and then it's you get all wired, and then you're crashing, and then you're taking another caffeine hit. It's an addiction almost.
Okay.
Actually, it is an addiction.
How risky is weight gain after menopause?
Well, that's a big question. I would say very risky.
Yeah.
I mean, obesity is linked to diabetes, hypertension, heart disease.
Right.
Is it being obese or is it age? It's hard to say. But when we're older, we want to decrease our risk of developing a chronic disease. And they have done the studies. It is linked to that. So we want to keep our weights down.
Right.
It's definitely the best thing you can do for your health.
And now what's considered obese, it's not that high a weight. They really want us to be on the thinner side in order to be healthy. It's medically. Not too thin, but just definitely on the slimmer side.
Right.
Should perimenopausal and menopausal women be eliminating sugar?
Added sugar.
Okay.
Added sugar. I mean, sugar can be very confused. Is fruit a sugar? Yes, but it's natural sugar.
Okay.
There's specific fruits that are better than others because certain fruits will raise your blood sugar a lot faster. At the end of the day, they all become glucose, which is a sugar in your blood, which is used for energy, which is a good thing. We need energy. But what source are we using?
No to donuts, but maybe yes to grapefruit.
Yeah, grapefruit, exactly. But not fruit juice because now you're taking the fiber out and you're just flooding your system with the sugar. Okay. So I would say sugar is bad when it is added sugar, like sucrose, like white sugar, white flour, just the empty carbohydrate type sugar. Which is really does nothing for you. Nutritionally, yes, adds nothing.
Does an appetizer suppressant with meds helpful during this time? So can that counteract kind of the hormones that make you hungry and don't allow you to know when you know?
No, it depends on. Well, first I'd like to know what the person was asking about. What appetite suppressant? But these things are unnatural. Okay. They act on your sympathetic nervous system. I mean, I can think of a few stimulant type medications which have numerous side effects.
Right.
So it's not worth it. And they're not going to change the ghrelin leptin balance at all. It's completely acting separately. It would probably make somebody lose weight for a short period of time, but cause some other health issues and most likely a rebound right after.
Okay, so that's definitely not the way to
No.
go. Can hormone replacement therapy stop weight gain? I know there's a lot of debate about hormone replacement therapy and whether it's good and whether it's not.
There is. I mean, you can Google it, everybody. The jury is out. A lot of people are pro, a lot of people are against it.
Confusing.
It is something that is offered at many places, even at our center, for the most stubborn cases, because sometimes, a little progesterone cream or something like that might help somebody, and maybe just temporarily it would be something that's added in. But again, if we're looking in a functional medicine, which is meaning the upstream and the root cause of why someone is feeling this way or why someone is having this deficiency, is there something we can take away, such as inflammation, through changing the nutrition, diet, lifestyle, adding stress reduction, which would maybe make those same changes anyway. Right?
Well, this is so fascinating, and I really hope that people go to the website because there's a lot more information, and you're writing blogs, and they can will have information and links to the New York Health and Wellness Center where you can find out about Balance Plus 3H. And I know people personally who have lost weight and kept it off and really got their sexy self on. So in a healthy way, and I think people like the idea of understanding the root cause that create the symptoms instead of just treating the symptoms. And so that's really what you're talking about.
That's everything.
Which is wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Dr. Kealy drove 3 hours to be with us, so we are so grateful, and hopefully you'll come
back.
My
pleasure. I would love to come back. It was really fun.
That. And at the very least, you'll do my bloods. You'll tell me what's wrong with me. Finally, it's about time I understand. Yes. And thank you for joining us on Talking Live, and we'll see you next time. Bye.